You know, we have a team building day coming up. They have already told us the program. It is kind of silly. So I told my manager, I'm sorry, but I don't think I am gonna go. And he said to me in response, you are coming to the team day, or you can spend 8 hours on that day sweeping the floor in the office by yourself. And I am gonna hire somebody to monitor you doing it, okay? So come to the team day or sweep the floor. Your choice. So I told my manager, okay, in this case, I will be happy to spend the day sweeping the floor. This is a fictitious scenario implicated in an interesting study about team building. And now let's consider another hypothetical employee. Someone who just came back from a terrible team building day, which he did not like at all, says, this team building day was so silly, not my kind of thing. But I'm not going to say that to the manager. After all, he organized it. So calling the team day stupid is like calling him stupid. I'm going to tell him it was great. So which of these two different employees would you rather be? If you're like me or like most people, you'd probably be the second guy. After all, it is sociopolitically risky to challenge and offend the manager, even if you're telling the truth. This means if we truly want to understand how employees really feel about team building events, we probably should not ask the manager. We should consider other sources of information. In this study which we're reviewing today, the authors looked at anonymous comments in blogs and internet discussion forums regarding team building days and team building activities in order to understand how employees really feel about team building. The findings of this study implicate 8 major categories of behaviors and attitudes. First, there are those employees who are genuinely positive about team days and team building events. Likely, these are employees who participated in well-organized and properly conducted team building activities and events. Their internet posts tend to indicate that they really enjoyed these team building activities and found them to be useful for subsequent work performances, and that if there are to be future team building events, they would truly like to join again. So these employees, the authors call them true believers. And on a two-dimensional coordinate system, they are placed here, indicating that they have positive attitude towards team building, and they also have positive future behavioral intentions about team building, meaning they would like to join team building events more in the future. So this is the first category, true believers. The second category of employees just simply go with the flow. So these are people who have a reasonably positive attitude towards team building. They do not necessarily view team building to be effective in terms of improving their work performance and productivity, but they say, well, it's fun to join some of these things, and I don't mind joining team building programs in the future again if the company asks me to. They just simply go with the flow. So these employees that are placed here, their attitude is less positive than the true believers, and their behavioral intentions are also a little bit less positive, but still positive nevertheless. So they also belong in this positive quadrant. The third category is known as rational thinkers. These employees actually have a relatively negative view on team building activities. They probably had some poor experiences with previous team building events, likely had to do some silly things which they did not like. But they might still see participating in team building events as part of what is required for their job, so they still attend team building events despite their negative view and poor prior experiences. These employees tend to be those who realize that there are socio-political risks associated with choosing not to attend team events. And in the visualization, these employees are placed right here, relatively negative views on team building, but still tend to participate. The fourth category is called pragmatists. Employees in this category, like rational thinkers, have a generally negative view of team building events. They also do not believe that team building events are intrinsically effective in terms of improving employees' work performance and productivity. However, they do choose to attend these events. They try to make practical use of these events for other personal or professional gains. For example, they might go to the team day just to promote themselves or their own projects. These employees tend to be politically minded and are quite utilitarian, and that is why they are referred to as pragmatists. In the two-dimensional coordinate system, they are placed here. Negative attitude towards team building, but do quite actively participate for pragmatic reasons. Category number 5, the saboteurs. This, I think, is probably the most interesting group. In the analysis of these online comments and posts, the authors came across a number of them that basically said, I hate team building and I know it does not work, but I still show up just to mess it up. Don't you just love these people? These are the employees with the most negative view towards team building. Probably these are people who were previously subjected to terrible, cringeworthy, poorly conducted, embarrassing activities performed in the name of team building. These employees harbor resentment and anger towards team building activities, but they do choose to attend instead of excusing themselves, specifically to spoil and sabotage. In the visual representation, these saboteurs are placed here. Really negative views, but still choosing to attend, fueled by anger, resentment, and the desire to sabotage and/or revenge. A little misguided perhaps, but quite interesting. Category number 6, political dropouts. Employees in this category have a negative attitude towards team building. They do not believe team building events have significant positive effect on employees' work performance and productivity. These employees tend to have socio-political concerns regarding not attending team days, so they would try to come up with convincing and legitimate-sounding reasons or excuses so that they can skip team events and team outings in a relatively safe and justified manner. And yes, this is what I often do. In the visualization, this category, of which I am often a part, is placed right here. Relatively negative views towards team building, and behaviorally, they try to get out using nice and political-sounding excuses. Number 7, these are people who just honestly opt out. This category is rather similar to political dropouts. The crucial difference is that these employees do not bother to come up with excuses. They tend to simply decline downright to participate. These may be older employees close to retirement or people who are simply not interested in career advancements or promotions. So they are much less constrained by the potential socio-political risks associated with declining to join team days. So they just honestly say, sorry, I'm not going to be there. Although they will not be there on the team day, they will be here in the visualization, right here. The last category, probably the least interesting, employees who have a relatively positive view of team building but do not attend due to genuine, legitimate reasons. And these employees are referred to as absentees with genuine reasons, and they are placed right here in the visualization. So these are the 8 categories representing different attitudes and behavior intentions on team building. Where do you belong? Now, if we call back to the beginning of this video, those 2 hypothetical employees that we talked about, the first employee, I see him as an honorable, honest opt-out, and the second employee, probably a pragmatist. How do you see yourself? Where do you belong in this figure? Before we end this video, there are a couple of things I would like to clarify. First, yes, this fun little study was done by a colleague of mine and myself. This study is exploratory, qualitative, so we are not making any claims about numbers or proportions. In the review process that this study went through, we had reviewer comments asking, why do you put more categories on the negative attitudinal side in the visualization? How do you know that more employees hold a negative view towards team building than positive? Well, we do not know that, and we did not claim that we did. We are not commenting on the numbers or proportionality between employees with a positive versus negative view on team building. The categories are theoretical and conceptual. They do not represent employee numbers. Another critical remark we had to tackle was this. Some reviewers said you do not know what specific activities these employees had to perform as part of their team day. And without knowing that, the analyses that you performed and the conclusions you drew may not be valid. The first part of this critique is true. We do not know what specific activities these employees had to perform as part of their team day. In other words, we have no idea what kind of activities these comments were commenting on. But that actually is an important point we made in the paper. So many different things are done in the name of team building interventions or team building activities, and that is what has led to this wide, diverse range of attitudes and behavior intentions when it comes to team building. That's why there are these true believers as well as these saboteurs. In fact, when we were collecting internet posts about team building for the purpose of potential analysis, we came across a lot of posts on Reddit asking, what should I make my employees do in our next team building day? These comments or questions were obviously not included in our analysis because they are not employees' reflections on team building activities that they joined. But these posts alerted us to the fact that it would appear that there are a number of managers who are charged with organizing team building events for their organization who simply do not know what activities should be performed as team building or what team building interventions are supposed to be. This gives us a pretty clear clue as to how clueless some managers can be about team building. If a manager who is charged with organizing their firm's team day had to ask on Reddit what they should make their staff do, that's a pretty clear indication that you probably would not want to join the team day of that company. And that's why I often find myself in category number 6. Alright, that's it for this video. As always, I invite you to leave your thoughts and comments down below. Thank you for watching this Randy Ways Random video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.